folks, we're here for another edition of the Red and White Podcast. I'm your host, Evan, with my co-host, Dustin, and this is the Misery Index edition.
Pretty bad.
I was hoping you'd be liquored up today so I could really get your unfiltered opinion on the weekend.
I'm not sure we need to put out an NC-17 type podcast. Whoo boy. I've calmed down a little bit now. The realist in me's coming out.
What does that mean?
Well, after the game, I was, lighting torches and getting pitchforks myself, but there's not going to be any change.
Well, I think that's the hard part for me. It's hard for it to be, I don't want to say excited, but you want to anticipate that we would be proactive here, but NC State does not have a history of being proactive, and that's a problem. I mean, that's been a problem for a long time. I mean, remember the 10 years of the Herb Sendek years, right? Everybody, every 4 years or every 3 years, it would bubble up. Oh, Herb's got to go. Then he'd do something, he'd win, and close enough, and then he's okay. Next year's the year. Just kind of one of those vicious cycles. So until we break the habit of accepting mediocrity, I'm with you. We haven't been proactive. We've got to do something.
It's got a really good idea for a tattoo, just like the block S, and then underneath it just says wait till next year.
I mean, that's it. That's the motto, and it drives me crazy. To me, there doesn't feel like a situation or a way out of this situation. It just feels like the end is inevitable, whether it's this year or next year. I think losing to BC is unacceptable. Losing to a BC team that hasn't won since 2014, I mean, that's unacceptable. Dave Dorn is now 1-3 versus BC. That's also unacceptable.
In defense, BC was due, right?
Oh, yeah, they're due.
I mean, they had to beat somebody.
They did not have to beat anybody. They're awful. They are bad.
I felt bad when we met you Saturday before the game to go tailgate. I just out of nowhere, I'm like, it kind of feels like a TOB UVA day, and I felt bad about it at the time, and I didn't actually think it necessarily, but damn.
You were 100% right. I said after the game, I said to you after the game, you were 100% right. That's exactly it. It was the homecoming that everybody was really apathetic. The students were awful. Their student presence was awful. I mean, they just weren't there. The north end zone was completely empty. And that was it. That was that Tom O'Brien UVA game. It just doesn't get any worse than those games. And so you get excited. I keep saying excited, but you anticipate, all right, this is it. We can't take this anymore. Right? Losing to Clemson. Oh, you played Clemson close. Getting blown up by Louisville. You can justify the hangover. Losing at home to BC that hasn't won pretty much ever is just, it's unacceptable. 7-21 is Dave Dorn's ACC record. Unacceptable to me. 3 ACC home wins in 4 years.
How
That's
many
pretty
does
unacceptable.
Fedora have in Carter Finley?
Probably
2,
more
right?
than that. Yeah, yeah, he's got 2. It's just, it's just all piling up. It's all being, indicative of you got to do something, right? We've talked about it before. We talked about previous season. What's your metric for success? Debbie has to have a metric for success for Dave Dorn, and to some degree, it's got to be ACC wins, and it's also got to be not losing to these idiots that you're supposed to beat. And I just think it's just hard to overcome. It's going to be hard to overcome the universal apathy that is setting in across state fans, just from everywhere.
Well, Debbie doesn't have to do anything because I've kind of got the feeling that Debbie doesn't care too much.
I don't know if she doesn't care. Maybe I don't know what it is, right? If she's prideful that this is her guy, it's going to work out, or
no, she's going to be gone soon. She doesn't want to deal with it.
Well, then if she's a lame duck,
Yeah.
athletic director, then you have another issue, right?
It's
So
just
I think at some point she's got to clarify, hey, I'm retiring at this point, or I'm done now, or something, because again, our athletic administration can't accept being in this sort of state of disarray.
the weird part to me is she's been so quick to pull the trigger for like the Olympic sports, the non-revenue sports, like this iron thumb rule over those. But then
Well, I think that's
is
part of her being, it's part of the old athletic director tradition of getting your guy in the positions.
yeah. But when your guy doesn't work out,
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think she has the same quick hand there, but at this point, I don't think it's a quick hand. And this is the part that's weird. I was talking with the Pack Pride, Rob McLam, on Twitter. Just trying to justify, not justify it even, just trying to understand his perspective. And we've been supporting Dave Doran through all this bullshit until last week. I mean, it's it. It's been 3+ years, 3.5 years, and we've supported him. We've justified, hey, it takes a while to turn the ship around, but what you expect is to see progress, right? You expect to see the team getting better and not doing stupid things, right? And we're not showing that progress. And to me, it's time to, I think that's pretty apparent.
what was worse, Louisville or Boston College?
Boston College, 100%. What doesn't help the Louisville case, if you're Dave Doran and you see Duke plays Louisville extremely tight, and then Virginia plays Louisville extremely tight, and then in the middle of those two games you get smoked by them.
Yeah,
That does not help your case at all, because Bronco's a good coach, Cutcliffe's a good coach. Those two games are played tight, but you get beat like you're UNC Charlotte. I mean, it makes it hard to justify. But the BC loss is still worse. You don't lose to those teams. I think people expect us to lose to Louisville. How it happens, whatever. But nobody expects you to lose to BC. Not this BC team, not this state team. And that's
right.
the problem. You don't show the progress.
Well, I don't know, man. A coaching search would be more exciting than.
Oh, it'd be great for our views.
I just mean it sounds bad, but it'd be more exciting than watching this season, honestly.
That's yeah. I mean, you're right. And again, we're not trying. I'm speaking for both of us here. I don't think it's something we want, right? We both want continuity. We both want a program that, like we said a couple episodes ago, we haven't had a coach that has left for a better job since 1979.
Yeah. That's
terrible. That's just a terrible state of apathy and bad hiring and everything. And I don't want that anymore. And now you start piling these things on, these losses, the bad record. Jalen Samuels, for some reason, 36 out of 64 snaps on the field during that game. And now I understand BC was keying on him, but maybe use him for misdirection, or maybe use him in another way that helps the rest of the guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Drink is the savior that everybody wanted him to be. And I don't want to be the guy that said I told you so, but I was never really excited about the Canada to Drink, transition. We're not seeing anything better. But J. Sam was on the field last year.
Well, he was until he wasn't, and that's what got Canada fired, right? The Virginia Tech game, J. Sam didn't get any snaps, right? And that's when the beginning of the end for him. But so now it starts to bring another question in there, right? We started the beginning of the year, we were playing with tempo. It was seemingly a completely different offense against different competition, sure, but the tempo and all these things are different. And it's about the same time last year when we started seeing the issues with the offense in Matt Canada. Now, we're seeing the same sort of things under different offensive coordinator. There starts to be a common denominator there, and it's not the offensive coordinator. I don't know what the issue is, but where there's smoke, there's usually fire, and they're starting to seem like it's a lot of smoke there.
Right.
And people, I don't know if you wanted to comment on that. I'm gonna keep going because. Go ahead.
No, it's just I don't know. I was not shy in making it known that I didn't think Canada was the problem.
Right.
And he's doing all right at Pitt.
Right.
I just don't think that was the change that was going to do it. I didn't then, and I obviously don't now.
You know,
I'm not saying Drink's a bad OC, but I don't know that he's an improvement, and if he is, it's not showing at all.
It makes me wonder if they're both being handcuffed by Dave Doran,
right? For
whatever reason, right? We've heard different rumors about Dave Doran putting control over the type of offense and things like that. I don't know what's true, right? Nobody knows what's true. They're all rumors, but there is a common denominator, and there is a common pattern that. It makes you think twice. It made me think twice, and I've been defending Dave Doran tooth and nail for a long time.
Right.
And you start seeing the offense score under 20 points in your last 3 games, 13 yards rushing versus Louisville, 41 yards rushing versus Boston College, with one of your all-time greatest backs in Matt Days. In school history, he's one of the best. And the offensive stinks right now. I don't know if that's on Drink. Maybe the play calls are questionable. There's some question in there. I don't like questioning play calling. But the overall schematic of the offense and the results that's produced, man, that's troubling for me.
We got to run the ball.
Yeah.
I'm the Harper on running the ball, so this really, really pisses me off. I mean, that backfield is loaded. There's no reason that our running game should have gotten worse.
Right.
I know there's some losses on the line. Well, we're well over halfway into the season. The line should be settling down. We should be running the ball.
Right.
Play calling aside, whatever. The runs we try are unsuccessful. So there's a lot wrong. There's a lot wrong.
There is, and that's what, again, to me, it points back to the bigger picture. And everybody was referencing Dan Wolken from USA Today's article, his misery index, where he had NC State number 2 on there. And it's not a surprise, right? First of all, he's been talking about it for a couple of weeks, and we'll put his clip at the end of the show about our program, our coaches. We asked him a question, and he responded on his podcast about who would take over our job, right? Who would fit in here. But what he's talking about in his misery index is starting to hear rumblings of some dissension inside the coaching ranks, inside basically the locker room at NC State, for the way Matt Canada was fired, for the unusual title assignments of assistant head coach for offense and defense for Kitchings and Barlow. And there's a lot of, again, smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? This isn't new to us. If our listeners probably know from last year that we talked about when Matt Canada got bounced. We heard that there were some issues in the locker room, but from what we were told, it was on Canada's side, or what we interpreted, it was Matt Canada's fault. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's pointing to a bigger issue, and I think it is. But it feels like everybody's taken aback by this. But it's something we've been talking about for a while. There's definitely something wrong in the locker room, or in his program, or in his coaching ranks, or something in there is not right. And that's not a recipe for success.
No, and Wolken said it, and I mean, honestly, we've kind of heard it too. That there's trouble in the locker room,
Right.
Don't want to get into all that, but it's not it's not a great environment right now. And like you said, I don't know. It goes back to that greatest common denominator, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no no getting around it. And I've seen a lot of people on Twitter talk. Oh well, I told everybody you should have listened to me about Doran. Well, I mean, good for you, but who cares? You know, we've tried to defend the guy, to fight back the lunatic fringe, if you will, that freaks out after one season. Guy's got to get a shot, but now it's becoming a much. It seems to be a bigger problem than wins and losses on the field.
I think you're
that's
right.
When there's a huge problem.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And that's part of this that doesn't sit well with me. I don't want to be, I don't want to give credence and validation to the guys that are, hey, I knew Dave Doran was bad, right? Because most of the time they have an agenda and it's something they don't like the way he talks, or they don't like something stupid about it, right? There's just always something they're nitpicking.
Right.
And I hate giving any sort of credence to those people and saying, all right, these people will say, oh yeah, now I was right. Well, you didn't have anything to base that assumption on before, but now we have 3.5 years of data, right? We have outcomes and tangible evidence that you can say, now you can hang your hat on and say, oh, I don't think he's right because of this, right? I don't think he's right because we're dead last in the country in penalties, right? That's an issue. To me, that speaks volumes of coaching. And sure, you put on the kids, well, if they do it right in practice, and we don't know if they do it right in practice, we have to take his word on it, but there's too many games where we're in double-digit penalties for just stupid things, lining up wrong, man downfield. Those are the ones that, to me, are coaching. The judgment calls, the stuff that we're always on the wrong side of, whatever, right? You can't hold him accountable for those. But I love what Jimbo and Pat Narduzzi did. And they're sticking up for their players, and the national media and everybody else is picking up. Hey, the ACC officiating sucks.
Yeah.
But we're still dead last in penalties, right? That's still an issue for us. We win at ECU if you're not dead last in penalties, right? If you don't have double-digit 100-plus yards in penalties. I could probably say the same thing for Clemson.
Yep.
And to me, that's coaching. If it happens once, okay, an aberration. If it happens all the time, if it happens every game, there's an issue that you need to coach them out of it. You need to coach discipline more. And that to me is another, that's a red flag.
Well, I mean, that was one of the problems with Chuck,
Yeah.
No discipline at all. And everybody recognized it. And, it's just weird now because, like, it started out that way and then it kind of got better, but now it's just regressing back to an even worse number, which is I don't want to say that you got one of the things that lead to penalties are just not caring,
right?
And if that's a problem, that's something that's got to be fixed, and it got that way for a reason. So you got to wonder if the people who let it get to that point can fix it, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't have the confidence that they can, and to me, that's a problem. I think you're really putting yourself in a bad position there if you continued and say, okay, that's okay. And we, like, after Chuck, we went the opposite direction, right? We went extreme one way. Went to Tom O'Brien, military man, and he doesn't coach. He coaches discipline, and we weren't dead last in penalties. I don't know what we were, but we weren't dead last in penalties, right?
What do you think TOB would do with this roster?
I think he would. I think he'd be a lot better in this situation right now if he had these players. And I know, James Washington, you're listening, and you say it's not on the players because these are his guys. But I think the talent has been elevated in a lot of positions. And I think Tom O'Brien wouldn't have lost that BC game at home and he probably wouldn't have lost that ECU game, although we've lost those games. He did lose some of them, but not with this team, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
He gets more out of players.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, I don't know. That's the part that really pisses me off.
And you can almost say, like, and I understand people are saying, oh, Clemson's still beating us, right? It makes sense. Clemson doesn't turn the ball over 5 times every game. And they tried to give us that game. And we still lost it. And it's partly because of the penalties and the just undisciplined play. So I don't like hanging the hat on a Clemson loss, right? But we played Clemson so close. We're so close. If we would have done this, and this, we would have won that game. Okay, you can say that every year, right? You're a State fan. You can say that every year.
If they had done this, and this, it wouldn't even have been close, though.
Right. They don't drop the ball 5 times.
Yeah.
They would have smoked us. But they did un-Clemson things. But we did NC State things, and we blew that game, right? We blew that ECU game by doing the same sort of things. And to me, that's an indicator of a bigger problem. I've said it before, and I think I said it in the reaction, is I don't want to get caught in this vicious cycle, because next year we're going to have juniors and seniors. And Dave Dorn had the excuse that we had a young roster, which we have, and we still do. There's only four guys on our 2 deep that are seniors. I asked Rob McLam this. I said, do you think, what's your confidence level that year 5 would be better? Or that year 5 is going to be an improvement? If you can say, all right, I'm 75% confident Dave Dorn's with his seniors are going to be 9-3, right? Or just this much better, then you can say, all right, then I can say, okay, I don't have that confidence right now. I think it's 50-50 and maybe less than that.
Yeah. I don't know. I was kind of confident going into this year. We see how it went, so.
Well, everybody was expecting 6-6. 6-6 with progression. Progression, beating the people you should, continuing to beat Boston College. Beat them last year. You hung your hat on that one, right? We went to Boston College, hadn't done that in forever, and we won. Okay, hang your hat on it. Cool. You got to beat them again, right? You got to continue moving forward.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even care about the record. I just want to see the team get better every week.
Right.
Record
we would all
aside,
take 6-6 with a loss versus Notre Dame, but being better across it, not being penalized everywhere, just being overall sharper and being more competitive.
Yeah.
But we're not going that direction. If we're doing anything, it's staying flat.
I don't know. I think they're getting worse week to week now.
They could be, and that at the best they're flat, right? They're flatline, and to me that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
That's my justification for it. I want continuity, right? I don't want to have a coaching search every 4 years. Bring a guy in who you can keep and who is going to build a program. You can talk about Dave Dorn's past, and he did well at NIU. Right, I heard that one a lot. Well, now maybe I start to wonder, did he do well with Jerry Kill's players?
Yep.
And then, did he just maintain what Jerry Kill had built? Right? It brings a lot of questions back into play. Just because they're not progressing. They're not progressing positively.
I mean,
speechless.
We see it. There's nothing we can do about it. Les Miles.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know what else to talk about with it, man.
Yeah, and I guess the question comes back to Yao, right? What is she going to do? Is she a lame duck AD? I don't know. I don't know her plans. But my thought was, how do you avoid a situation? How do you have a coach you let her hire the next guy? Maybe she hangs her hat on, hey, I put in the right guy in place before I step down. Or not, right? Maybe, but she brings in a guy, or somebody brings in a guy who transcends the next AD. What kind of player, what kind of coach does that? and I think you jokingly said it, Les Miles, right? Or Charlie Strong when he gets fired at Texas, right? People people are selling us short because like, oh, Les Miles will never come here. And the only argument I can have for that is that his son plays at Carolina, but his son doesn't play at Carolina. He's a backup, right? Doesn't I don't think that holds much weight. Maybe he's closer to his son. If anything, that's a plus,
Yeah,
right?
that'd be great.
And you bring in a guy like that who's not without his own issues, right? I think his offense there's concerns there and some things, but if you look at his overall record, and I know you and I have talked about this, relentlessly, he's got results. You can't argue with the results at Oklahoma State. They were nothing until he got there. At LSU, right? You can say, oh, he rode Saban's players national title, but you don't keep that for 10 years if you don't know what you're doing.
Here's my thing concerning that. You can say that he inherited a good situation. All right. You look at his time at LSU, he had 11 full seasons, not counting this year. In those 11 seasons, playing in the SEC West, he lost a total of 34 games. Dave Doran has lost 24 in 4 years.
Holy crap.
34 games in, we can ACC pride all you want. The toughest conference in football, or the toughest division in the toughest conference, especially up until a couple of years ago before Clemson and FSU showed back up. 34 games in 11 years. 2 of those were this year.
Wow. That's crazy.
So, if that's not good enough for them, hey, that's damn good enough for me here.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to hear this we can't get him type stuff. We could. We just got to try.
Absolutely we could. I read an article, and if you look at the competition out there, the way things have turned, you can see that we talked about earlier, there could be no jobs open, right? It could be a very calm year. USC probably might keep Clay Helton. He's turned it around. Auburn's going to keep Malzahn. He's 5-2 right now, or whatever his number is. They're playing really well.
Yeah, talk about a turnaround.
Right? So there's not a whole lot of jobs that are open. Sumlin saved his job at A&M. So Texas is going to be open. LSU's open. Baylor's open. All those jobs are above us right now, so I'm not really worried about them. You have to worry about Purdue's. Okay, I think we're a better job than Purdue. But I read an article that Purdue, they said, we're ready to financially commit to football. And that made me think, are we financially ready to commit to football? And what that means is you're paying $3 million plus a year.
I don't see why not.
I don't see why not either. I don't see why not.
I mean,
if we're not, why am I paying for my LTRs? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. With they're boasting all, record season ticket sales this year. Well, Notre Dame didn't hurt, but that's not going to carry over to next year without something to excite the fan base. I'm not saying we're going to end up with Chapel Hill crowds, but I'm not excited about buying season tickets.
No, and when I leave a game at halftime and don't go back in, that never happens. Right? I don't rarely leave the games, let alone not go back in. And my excitement is I'd rather go home and watch it on TV and hang out with my child, right?
No desire to sit there for that.
Yeah. And now you want me to pay up another how many grand for next year? I don't know, man. That makes that decision a lot harder. And the only thing that saves Dave Doran right now, in my opinion, is 4-0. Maybe 3-1. Maybe.
No. Get ready for the 1-3. Hopefully.
Again, Syracuse is the game that we were counting on.
Yeah.
And they're trending in the right direction. Maybe Miami's trending in the wrong direction, but still, Mark Richt is, I'm not going to say we're going to beat Mark Richt coach team.
You can't say that you can beat anybody when you lose to BC at home.
Fair enough. There you go.
I mean, I don't see how we would be favored in any of the games coming up.
Right.
Like, we might be favored at Syracuse, but not the
I don't know
other three.
how.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how. And I mean, going back to what I was talking about, I don't think there's much competition for jobs out there right now, and there's plenty of good coaches that I would take. My first call would be to Les Miles and Charlie Strong, assuming he gets fired. I would love to have Charlie Strong's Louisville years. Bring him on. I think he's had a tough situation at Texas, maybe not the right fit. I don't think that doesn't question his coaching abilities to me and his recruiting abilities.
Yeah, no, he could recruit here.
Right. I mean,
He was just wrong for Texas from the second he stepped on campus.
Right.
It's just not. He's not a Big 12 guy.
Right. I mean, at the very least, you end up with Manny Diaz or PJ Fleck, and no bones about it. I love PJ Fleck. He's built Western Michigan from nothing to undefeated right now.
I just have no interest in a MAC coach.
Yeah, and so I understand that argument, especially coming from Dave Doran. But if that's the worst you're going to get, I think he's better than Dave Doran.
Right.
And I would love to see what a good coach can get out of the talent we have, especially offensively next year. So I think, when it comes down to it, his buyout is $2.5 million roughly. Next year it's 1.6. So is it worth $840,000 to get rid of him this year, assuming he doesn't go 4-0? Is it worth $840,000 to move on and take a different shot at somebody, a different coach, better shot at a different coach?
I don't know. Do you want to be shady and work some back channels first to see if you can get somebody? Because I'm all for that.
I'm sure the back channels are working. I mean, we hear all the rumors.
Yeah.
I don't know which one's true, but I would imagine out of the 20, we hear one of them's true.
So
and then you heard,
if you lock up somebody that's a good hire, pull the trigger.
Yeah. And there's a lot of good potential out there.
I don't know. If you talk to people and it seems like there's no interest, then okay, fine, sit on it, I guess. But I don't know. I don't see why we can't win. I really don't.
I don't either. And I referenced back our interview a couple episodes ago with Scott Russell, Football Scoop, and he said it's a good job. The facilities, the money, the fan base, the conference, it's a good job. You can win here. And so people who say you can't get Les Miles, you can't get Charlie Strong, you can't get any of these name coaches, that's just years of being beaten down as a state fan. Because I don't agree with any of that.
No.
I think you can get a coach. I think you can get one of those guys and have sustained success. There's no reason that, and this is somebody's Twitter point. I wish I had saved your name. But there's no reason that Larry Fedora, under investigation for his entire term, has out-recruited and outperformed NC State. To me, that's very hard to argue against that, or very hard to argue your point of he's outperformed. A better coach. He's gotten better results with similar talent. So I think we're beating a dead horse here. I think there's opportunity. I don't know what's going to happen. You hear rumors of back channel meetings and athletic directors meeting with the big donors willing to do things. We can't give any credibility to it because I don't know if it's true. I wasn't there. But you just hear these things talking, right? And people are always talking, so there's always something. But at some point, where there's smoke, there's fire. And it might be something. But you're going to come out and they're going to beat Florida State. And we're not going to be able to talk about this anymore, right?
Yeah. Woo.
Somehow we got a 7 p.m. game versus Florida State. Please tell me how that happened.
I don't know. I'm so torn. I'd kind of rather just get it get out of the way at noon so I can go home and watch like good football.
Right.
But I don't know. I guess the night might help us, something like that. I've seen crazy things against Florida State when it's dark. So
Yeah. I can either see Florida State coming out flat after a loss, but that would require that we didn't come out flat and we kind of rebounded.
right.
I don't have a lot of confidence in that, but we still have to stop Dalvin Cook. It's basically Dalvin Cook's show because he's ridiculously good.
Yeah, I don't mind Francois. I mean, he's a good quarterback.
He's good. He's serviceable.
I don't know. It's weird. It puts you in one of those frames of mind that it's like, well, is it? You obviously want to win, but like, is it better for the program to get a job-saving win, or to, just kind of face the inevitable?
Yeah. I hate being that guy, and I won't be that guy that pulls against your program, but I understand what you're saying. It's like the excitement level of winning is awesome because you beat Florida State, maybe a top 25 Florida State, but you also Herb Sendek yourself back into the same cycle.
Exactly. It's kind of like the Les Miles situation at LSU.
It's exactly right. Yeah.
So, do you want to give a guy a chance to save his job, even though, or when that happens, well, you get him for another year, whether you want to or not, kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what their LSU AD said, and I think Scott Russell said it as well, that they didn't want to get into that situation anymore, and they knew that Les Miles was going to win some games and save his job again. They would just be in this cycle. So, yeah, I don't know. I can see a lot of things happening. I have no idea what's going to happen in this game, which team's going to show up for both sides. But a night game's always fun, so that's good. I'm not even angry anymore, and I think a lot of State fans aren't angry. They're more embarrassed and they're more upset of just this constant cycle. And I don't know. I'm kind of over it. That's the frustrating part.
Yeah, I'm just ready for basketball season.
Omer, he's back.
Yeah.
He got 9-game suspension.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
As a State fan, you take it because you can see it being all year. I don't know if it was Jay Billis or one of those guys, just drilled the NCAA on it.
Yeah, it was Billis.
Yeah. And, they're going to make him pay $1,000 to a charity because he took some money or something like that. But the NCAA is going to make how much money off of him?
Yeah.
There's just no consistency in their thinking. But hey, the fact that he can play, that's a win for Godfrey.
Either way, basketball will be fun. I'm ready for those podcasts.
Yeah, that should be good. All right, that's all I got. Well, let's not beat this one too much more. We'll play some listener calls, and then we'll actually play the Dan Wolken clip, too, because I'd like people to hear that question and his comments on our coaching situation.
All right.
But thanks for listening. As always, go Pack.
Go Pack.
Question from the Red and White podcast, which is an NC State oriented Twitter account. They said, you mentioned NC State on Tuesday's podcast. Big if, but who would you look at for that job if things went south this year? Yeah, and look, I mentioned it before. Dave Doran has a very low buyout number, and that is fueling speculation within the industry and among agents and coaching search people that if NC State tanks in the second half of this year, and they've got a really tough schedule, that NC State may just go ahead and pull the plug on Dave Doran and go look for somebody else because the buyout is not prohibitive. And look, I think NC State is one of those jobs where you're in the same division as Florida State, Clemson, and Louisville. It's a tough division to sort of break through and make your mark right now. But on the other hand, North Carolina is a state with a lot of really good players. And you can go in there at NC State, and if you recruit, you've got better facilities than they've ever had. It's a huge state school. It's a good fan base, good home atmosphere at games. Like, I think you can go in there and get that program to a little bit better place than they are now. And certainly they thought that was going to be happening under Doran, and they just haven't been able to quite break through yet. On the other hand, this is not the type of job where you go and try to get Tom Herman. Like, he's not going to go to NC State. So, I think there's two different tracks there. One track would be, you try to go poach somebody who's on the hot seat somewhere else, and maybe you, or somebody who's been damaged, a Les Miles and Art Briles. That's certainly one track. I don't think that would happen. And then the other one is, you go after a PJ Fleck type of guy. And I think certainly he'd be viable at NC State. I think Lane Kiffin might be viable at NC State. It's that type of job. But, they went to the MAC last time, Dave Doran at Northern Illinois. He's been solid. He just hasn't been really good yet. And I don't have like a list of 10 people who necessarily I would call, but resources, again, question mark. It's a basketball-oriented school in some ways. So I don't know. I mean, I think PJ Fleck would be the guy I would target first if I were NC State. But, they hired a coach from the MAC last time. I don't know if that would fly this time.
Hey, Dustin. Hey, Evan. How you doing? It's Ed calling from Los Angeles. As disappointed as you all are and Pac Nation is about the loss to Boston College, the realization, I think the disappointment for me is the program is really just imploding in the fourth year of Coach Doran's tenure. And there have been a lot of frustrations. There have been a lot of disappointments. I think that the Clemson loss has particularly affected this team this year emotionally really badly. And I feel for those young men. I feel for the coaches. I support the Pac, and I want them to succeed. But the realization for me, unfortunately, and I hate to be this harsh toward Coach Doran, and I certainly don't want to put all the criticism on just him or his staff, is that he and his staff are incapable of winning in the ACC, and that's the bottom line. Coach Doran and the Wolfpack under Coach Doran cannot win ACC games. They cannot beat our in-state rivals, whether it's out of conference like East Carolina, whether it's in the conference, North Carolina, Wake, Duke. Obviously, they beat Wake this year, but I got to tell you guys, that's probably going to be the only ACC win of the year, because now I don't believe this team is going to recover and win any more games. I believe they finished the year 4-8. They, of course, won't be in a bowl, and I don't really see Coach Doran coaching next year, regardless of how many players he has coming back, regardless of how many recruits he have that committed to the Wolfpack for next year. The bleeding must stop. The embarrassing losses must stop. The reality, the numbers, 28 ACC games and only 7 victories in 4 years. O'Brien wasn't this bad, and Amato wasn't this bad, and, of course, O'Kane wasn't this bad. Bottom line is you just cannot win in the conference. So regardless of whether you're 7-5, 6-6, if your conference record is poor and you cannot beat your in-state rivals, then your future is going to be short. In any case, I believe Les Miles could be the answer. He has more than 100 victories in college football. He has a national championship, and obviously this man can recruit the players that NC State needs to compete with the likes of Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and now North Carolina.
Your thoughts on Dave Doran being so braggadocious about his loss at Clemson, and how whenever he first got there they lost 41-0 giving them nothing. But now they were just on the cusp of winning. That day I knew it was coaching that lost that game. Then it snowballed into Louisville pounding us, and now the coaching became more evident in this horrible loss to Boston College.
I never thought I would say this. I have defended Dorn to the tilt. But when the obvious answer is put in a quarterback that can go deep, i.e. McClendon, nobody defends the pass. They are asking for you to run 10-yard outs. Nobody is deep. They have one player deep, and they have a slot that can run an out route every time for 10 yards. Go deep. It's terrible.